Hi, I'm Johnny and you're watching the Hexy Beast, and on today's video we're going to be doing something a little bit different. I'm actually going to be doing my top 10 games from my first year in the hobby. This should be an interesting one, as a few weeks ago marked my first year anniversary of getting into solitaire board games, and right now I think we best get on with the video, right? Hi, I'm Johnny, and we're just about to get into some of our honourable mentions for this top 10 of my first year in solo gaming video. So, for the first honourable mention, I've chosen Mansions of Madness. One of the main reasons this didn't make it onto my list is actually because of the fact that there is another game very similar to this on the list. I really do like it though. It is one of those, it does require an app to play, but that doesn't really bother me. It helps with setup and stuff. It's actually quite fun. So now on to the next honourable mention, if I can find a spot to put this one down. We're going to go for Wingspan. This is a engine building card game for 1 to 5 players. I actually really enjoy the game, but not quite enough compared to the other games that's on this top 10 to actually, it just didn't make the list, to be honest. I have a good few games, and to find 10 of them that I consider the best, this one, although brilliant, just didn't cut something. It just didn't make the cut. That's the one. Next, we've got Everdell. This also for the same reason as Wingspan. It's another engine building card game, but it didn't make the list because there are a lot of other games that I actually prefer to it. Although, once again, I do love this game. I do find myself playing it a lot. It does spend a lot of time on the table, so that's Everdell. Now moving on to our next honourable mention. We're going to go for Sagrada. This is actually one of my favourite games, but it's not one of my top 10 favourite games. If I was making a top 20 list, pretty much everything I've shown you so far would probably end up on it. And I really like this one, as I think it's a great game for beginners, but there's also plenty of challenge there if you just want a quick 15-minute puzzle. There's a lot of replayability, but like I said, it just didn't quite make the list. So, that leaves us with one more honourable mention before we get into the main meat of this list. This is Marvel Champions. This is my favourite of the LCGs, so you're not going to be seeing Arkham Horror on this list. Like I said, this game, I've kind of spent too much money collecting it, but at the end of the day, this is my favourite LCG, but it's not top 10 material, so even though I absolutely love this game, it's not going to be appearing in this top 10 list. So, anyway, that's all of my honourable mentions. I think it's time that we just got onto the main list. Okay, before we get started, I just want to mention that this is just my, objective opinion of my favourite 10 games from my first year in the hobby. So you may disagree with some of the games on this list. You may think of games that I haven't. Either they're not in my collection or they just didn't hit the same notes with me. So basically, without much further ado, let's get on with it. So my number 10 is actually Arkham Horror 3rd Edition. Now, when I first started gaming, this was one of those games that really spoke to me when I was in my local gaming store. I walked past it, I was like, ooh, what's this? At first, I was a little iffy because when I first started in the hobby, I was pretty much obsessed with modular boards. This was actually the 3rd game I owned, and it sort of taught me the basics of how the general Fantasy Flight system works with their whole, 2 health bars, your health and your sanity and stuff. It's a really good adventure game. There's plenty of variety. It also tells some great stories. I think that I keep playing this. I've also expanded it. There is a Dead of Night expansion, which is up there somewhere. But like I said, Arkham Horror, my number 10. Really like this game. Highly recommend it. Okay, this is time for number 9, and we have Black Angel by Pearl Games. Okay, so this, a lovely art by Tool as well while we're at it. Oof, so pretty. Okay, this is kind of like a Euro engine building. It's kind of got 3 boards. One of them basically is a map that moves your ship towards a planet, which triggers the end round. And as well as that, you've also got your own little technology board, which is basically where you're building an engine to earn victory points at the end. I find the Automa in this was actually very, very, very fun to play. Hal is a really nice opponent, and I think he reacts perfectly. It has a very interesting gameplay loop because instead of having actions per turn, you actually have a phase A and a phase B, which each do different things. Like I said, Black Angel, wonderful looking game, takes up a bit of space on the table, and I really like it. It's my number 9. Okay, so that brings us on to number 8, which in this case is actually 2 boxes. We have Legends Untold. I really like Legends Untold. It's basically a cooperative adventure game which basically plays in under an hour. When I first started the hobby, this cave set here was one of the things that I was first playing. This was actually the second game in my collection. I think these games are excellent value for money. They provide a lot of content. There's a load of one-offs and a full campaign in each box. I find the Weeping Cave set, as I started, is more sort of it's just your typical dungeon crawl. You're a load of survivors. You've come from a bad place and you're trying to make your way through. But one of the things I really like about this is that it's a card-based system with an interesting dice system to back it up. I find that while playing this, it's very easy to have an interesting adventure in about an hour's time. And once I'd finished with this, I got this, they're basically 2 different base sets of the same game. And there's going to be more of it coming soon. So that was my number 8, Legends Untold. Okay, so that brings us to my number 7. And my number 7 is actually Core Space. This is an amazing sort of skirmish game similar to things like Warhammer. It uses rulers to check ranges, etc. It comes with a lot of terrain, as plastic pegboards, dry wipe markers to do your stats. There's a lot of game in this box. It's pretty much the only miniature skirmish game that I found that I could fit on a 2x2 space. So if you haven't got much space, but you still want all the fun of a skirmish game, and something like Warhammer, whatever, where you throw dice to resolve combat, but you like checking ranges and stuff like that, this game, you really can't go wrong with it. The fact that it plays solo is really nice. I've really enjoyed upgrading my ship over the time I've been playing, and my crew. It's really just a really nice campaign game. If you haven't seen it already, you should definitely check this one out. This is Core Space. Okay, so that brings us on to my number 6, and for my number 6, I've gone with Rallyman GT. I think this game is a good, fun dice rolling game. It's roll to move, but not in the same way you'd expect. Your dice basically function as a way to shift up the gears and get around the track faster. It's a nice little racing game, but it has plenty of depth in some of its systems. I find myself playing this a lot. There's actually a very good web-based implementation of it on BGA, on Board Game Arena. So like I said, the fact that I can just build any track I want sometimes and just roll some dice, check my time, beat my own score. I've just found it very, very good game. There wasn't very much about it that I could say was wrong with it. If you're looking for something with, a lot more stats, depth, powers and stuff like that, it's probably not for you. But for me, who was someone with an interest in motorsport, it really scratches a certain itch that no other game can. So that was my number 6, Rallyman GT. Okay, so that brings me to my number 5, which is the reason that Mansions of Madness wasn't on the list. For my number 5, I have chosen Lord of the Rings, Journeys in Middle-earth. And basically this is a really good adventure game. It's app-driven, it's for 1 to 5 players. It's also by Fantasy Flight. I think that, as an adventure game goes, it really solves that problem of that Mansions of Madness had, where the minis were on those ugly stands. I think, as well as that, the hex-based tiles make it a lot more interesting to look at. I've actually been through this campaign quite a few times, just because I've enjoyed it so much. The minis in there are like middle of the road, but they're definitely serviceable for what they do. And to be honest, for the price of the game, including with the way the app develops everything, it's not that cheap, but I think it's definitely worth the money. If you're having to choose between Mansions of Madness or Lord of the Rings, as long as you like the IP Lord of the Rings, then you really can't go wrong by choosing Journeys in Middle-earth. It's a really good adventure game. Anyway, so that's my number 5, Lord of the Rings, Journeys in Middle-earth. Okay, so now we're getting into some of the good stuff in the list. So this is number 4. This is my first game on the list from Chip Theory Games. It's heavier than Lord of the Rings. Cloudspire. Well, where do I start with this game? It's a monster. It's massive. Basically, it's a tactical strategy game where your health is represented by chips. Chip theory really do have an amazing component quality, and although this game is expensive, I found that there's plenty of strategy and plenty of game to actually be playing. The solo scenarios, like I said, I'm nowhere near finished on this game. I'm probably about halfway through the solo scenarios in the base game. It does take a while to play, I will say that, but those 4 hours are basically going to be some really tactical, really interesting battles. It's kind of based on MOBA, so you have your minions that you control. You also have your heroes, which are not automated. Your minions basically have automated movement and attack patterns, and your heroes are controlled independently by the player. It plays over a hex map. It's large. It's all made of really nice smelling neoprene. And to be honest, my number 4, Cloudspire. What a game, really, what a game. So that was number 4. Okay, so now we're on the top 3. So what do you reckon my number 3, my third best game of my first year in the hobby is going to be? Well, for number 3, I've decided to go with Spirit Island. So basically, Spirit Island is a sort of card drafting game where you're basically trying to mitigate a lot of threat. You're going to have islanders who invade this island, and you're trying to basically stop them invading. I think the design of this game is just so much content in the box, to be honest. First of all the spirits play vastly differently. We have some double-sided island tiles which slot together nicely if you should choose to play it two-handed, three-handed, or even more. The spirits themselves, like I said, are very diverse, and the threat mitigation provides plenty of challenge, to put it that way. I don't often win this game, but every time I play it, it's an absolute blast. So for number 3, that is Spirit Island. Okay, so that brings us to number 2. So, what do you reckon we're going to have here? Some of you may know, on the solo groups, if you've been on Facebook, you might know this game and me have a very special relationship. We're going to go for number 2, is going to be Mage Knight. Well, where do I start? This, when I first started the hobby, was pretty much my grail game. Once I started playing it, I couldn't stop. I still pretty much play this game weekly. It's basically a mixture of deck building, adventure. It's a very interesting puzzle. It's a very challenging puzzle. You basically have map tiles that you're trying to explore this big land. You take on the role of these Mage Knights, obviously. But this game, like I said, it pretty much has lots and lots to think about. There really isn't much more I can say about it without having to do a full playthrough to really explain just how much depth and interesting decisions are actually being made throughout this game. There's a couple of Mage Knights that are actually in the base box, but there's also some expansions that add another one and some few things. So I think I really do have to get the ultimate box for this guy soon, because up until recently this was going to be in my number 1 spot in this video, but something happened which we'll talk about in a minute. But like I said, Mage Knight, my number 2, absolutely every solo gamer needs to own this, unless you're Luke Hector from the Broken Meeple, because he absolutely hates this game. That was my number 2, Mage Knight. Okay, so this brings us round to our number 1. What is it going to be? Which one have I picked? Who knows? Let's find out, shall we? So, this is even heavier than Cloudspire. So the best game that I have played in my first year of the hobby, Too Many Bones. And what can I say? This is just an absolutely amazing game. The team over at Chip Theory Games have really struck gold with this game. And to be honest, I really can't stop playing it. There's just so much tactical depth in the battles. And I find setup is a dream. It really doesn't take long to set up, but you will be playing it for hours if you choose the right tyrant. It plays on a 4x4 grid. When you're in combat, there's plenty of decisions to be made on the way. There's lots of lovely components, again, typical of Chip Theory. So we have our weighted chips. We have our neoprene mats with stitched edges on this printing, by the way. We also have like lots and lots of dice. Each character has 16 dice, plus we have a load of attack and defense dice. You know, everything is custom printed. It's really nice quality. What can I say? Every time you open a Chip Theory box, it's always a pleasant surprise. I've recently done a review of this game on the channel, and I was absolutely surprised that by the time I played it a few times, how it knocked Mage Knight off my top spot. And it really is just an amazing game. Anybody who gets the opportunity to own or play this game, seriously, don't pass it up because you will have a whale of a time. It is an absolutely amazing game and probably my favourite game so far. We're going to have to wait till next year to see if anything better comes along. So, that's been my top 10 games for my first year of solo gaming. And if you like what you see, please feel free to smash that subscribe button over by here somewhere. And check out another one of my videos up there. I've been Johnny. You've been watching The Hexy Beast. And most of all, stay hexy, everyone.